Hi, in this video I'm showing you how to calculate the years worked or someone's age using the YEARFRAC function. So basically the YEARFRAC function, it takes three arguments. Two of them are required, one is optional. It takes a start date, an end date, and this basis option. I'll show that a little bit later on in this table. But basically all you need to do is, let's say for example, we wanted to figure out the years worked for people, and then we have a start date for people, or this could be the age of a person and this is their birth date. So let's say the end date is today, and I could just use the function today, which would be the February 23rd 2015. Press enter, it will automatically enter that in there. Let me go and double click the fill handle here to drop it down, so it's all the same thing. That formula copies all the way down. And for the YEARFRAC function, just type equal year, and I'll just go ahead and select this, double click to select that. And I'll enter start date here, choose that as the start date, comma, and then the end date will be this one. And then I can go ahead and just add the closing parentheses, because what happens is if you don't choose the basis, which is optional, it will select the US NASD and 360, which means that it's going to assume every month has 30 days in it for a total of 360 days in a year. So there's other basis values here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can choose accordingly. But I actually think, let me go ahead and go back there, and the best one probably is 1, because this one's more used for financial industry. There's the other ones that are kind of used depending on which industry you're at, but 1 is probably the best one because it's the actual number of days in the month and the actual number of days in a year. So that's probably the best bet, and that'll probably give you the most accurate reading, is using the selection 1 instead of taking the default, which is 0. So if I click enter, press enter, it will give me back that in years. Let me go and double click it to fill it down. The formula will copy down. So we have 5.145595 years. So if this was somebody's age, we usually don't express someone's age in decimals. We don't say, oh, you are 5.5 years old. We kind of round it, and I'm going to go ahead and choose rounding it down instead of rounding it up. I think people like to be a little younger. So for most folks like to be a little younger. So we're going to round it down. So we would just use the round down function. Let me go and select that. So we enclosed our YEARFRAC function within the round down function, and it will round it down. Oops, I entered too few arguments. That's because I forgot to enter the number of digits. So I don't want to have any decimals, so I'll press 0. Let me go and remove this underscore here and press enter, and it'll round it down to 5. So this 9.9 is going to round it down to 9. So let me go ahead and double click that. Well, this 13.45 will round it down to 13. Let me go and double click this to bring it down, so we have 9 and 13. So that's how you would use the YEARFRAC function. It'll give you the decimal a representation of a year based on a start and end date. If you wanted to round it, you can use the round down function. There's always a round up function where you can round it up, but I chose the round down function here. So as I expressed earlier, there are some examples here for using the basis option. So there's different 4 examples. So depending on which basis you use, it's going to give you a different year fraction. So as I mentioned before, if you don't use the basis options, if you didn't select anything, it would automatically default to 0 or omit it, and that gives you a 30 days a month, 360 days a year type of basis for the calculation. And you see the other ones here. This will give you the actual date and the actual days of the month and the actual days of the year. And we have others here which are kind of representative depending on what kind of industry you're in. So let me just go through a brief example of how the difference would show up if you put that in there. So I'm going to go ahead and type equal YEARFRAC. I'll choose the start date here, the first one here. So that'd be start date here, and then the end date here. And then for my basis, I'm going to choose this one, B9. But let me go ahead and lock these in, because if I copy this particular formula down, it's going to move those cell references. So I'm going to just press the F4 key. It will lock that cell reference down. Press F4 here, it will lock that one down. Let me go ahead and close the parentheses, press enter. You'll see it becomes 5144, as we saw earlier here when we didn't use the round down function. If I go ahead and double click it to bring it down, you'll see the different parameters it gives, or different outputs it gives based on the value you chose for the basis. So there's kind of an example of if you use the different basis options, these are the different figures that it will give out. I think for the most part, people will probably use 1, which will give you the actual days of the month and the actual days of the year that you would use for your start and end date calculations for the years. So there's a YEARFRAC function. You can use that to determine a year's work for somebody or the age of somebody based on the start and end date. So I hope that helps. Thanks for watching.